mean, it has no preference. It can happen to anyone in any socioeconomic class as well. Long-term effects of domestic violence, there are physical and mental ones. Long-term physical, we see women who have really gone through and they're emotionally, they've dealt with all their trauma, but yet because of the physical abuse when they were younger, they now deal with arthritis, they have high blood pressure, and they suffer from heart disease because of all the stress that was put on them during the time of the abuse. Some of them still suffer financially with financial instability, and some of them, there's definitely mental situations. So there's depression, and because of that depression, there's substance abuse, and of course there's distrust. But to touch on that substance abuse, that's really important because sometimes, so this is where I kind of intercorrelate them, like in substance abuse, I think that a lot of times there needs to be trauma-informed therapy, and they need to say to this addict or alcoholic, like, what happened to you? Because sometimes it's something as much as they are using that addiction to cover their past trauma from abuse. Moving on in the human service field, I think it is very important for the human service field as well as us professionals in the field to advocate for state and federal laws. We had a big, huge Pennsylvania law passed that was huge last on the 10th. So I think that was last Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, at first, the abuser had 72 hours to have their guns relinquished, and they were allowed to relinquish them to family members or friends. With this law, they have to relinquish them within 24 hours, and it can no longer be to family and friends. Part of that is because of a situation that's close to our county, because another situation that happened in our county, and something that this bill was based on, her name was Jody Warshaw. She had a PFA. She was picking up her children from a local Sheetz, and he had to have his guns handed over, so he relinquished them to family members, and his mother, being a mother, handed them back to her son, and he took the guns, and at the exchange of the children, he shot her and killed her. So that is huge that we now have that law in place. We felt like that was a victory in our county. Another thing we need to do moving forward is ensure free and accessible services for victims. Because these victims obviously have suffered financial abuse, they don't have money or are in the situation to pay for housing or to pay for, our counseling services or our shelter services. So it's very important that we make sure that's accessible and free for them. So we also help them after they're leaving the shelter. We try to set them up with food, and we try to get their furnishings through donations and anything we can do. But it's really huge to do that and help get them moved in the right place toward empowerment. Lastly, another thing that's very important is providing trainings for even just as much as judges, like trauma-informed trainings for judges to make them aware of the abuse that these women have suffered, and so that they're aware of, how to be sympathetic and empathetic of these situations. We need to focus on prevention, outreach in schools and college campuses and community-based programs. We definitely need to be out there, and we need to be teaching as much as we can about the domestic violence and the dangers and the amount of individuals that we lose to domestic violence each year. October is our Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we really like to push things then, but it should be Domestic Violence Awareness Month 12 months out of the year. All right, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.